vacancies, but no one to fill them. So Simon said he'd be a bit late, so we'll get on with it before he comes. We won't wait. And Councillor Ewan is an apology.
Leave of absence, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, leave of absence, sorry. Yep.
So we don't have to co-opt the Lord Mayor, do we? It's just
no, Lord Mayor's on the committee.
Yep. Oh, right.
Yep.
Okay.
So no one to co-opt. Item 2 is confirmation of minutes. Someone? Helen? Any objection to the minutes? I'll declare that carried. Item 3, supplementary items. There are none. Item 4, indication of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Anyone? No conflicts? Okay. We'll move on to item 5, transfer of agenda items. We all good with the agenda as it is? Yep. Okay. Item 6 is reports. 6.1 is request for speed limit reduction 490 to 601 Hewan Road, South Hobart. So this is to reduce a section of road to match the other ends of it from 60 down to 70. So
move it. Chair.
Okay, moved by the Lord Mayor. Neil, since you're here, did you want to speak to this, just so you haven't wasted your time coming to a meeting?
No. It was 70 down to 60.
What did I say?
60 down to 70, I think. The other way around. Yeah, look, I think the report speaks for itself. We've had a number of requests, number of concerns raised. Certainly the number of crash statistics provides a fairly a compelling case that there is an issue around the nature of the road and potentially speed. So I don't know whether, Louisa, you wanted to add anything in relation to this matter. You've had some discussions with the concerned residents.
I went through and looked at the Pitt and Sherry road safety audit to examine what percentage of the risks identified in the road safety audit were high. So it was 47 high risks, over 85 identified risks, many of which were medium as well. So this is a good mitigation where we're unable to undertake those capital works upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Happy to support Lord Mayor, to support the Chairman.
Yeah, I am too. And Chair, I'm a bit worried because I have to leave at about 5:32, and then you'll lose a quorum. So yeah, I'm happy to support without discussion, but I'm very aware of the issue and very supportive. Okay,
so it sounds like we're in favour of it, that we'll all support it. So I'll put who's moved it? Lord Mayor, you have, I think. Yep. Okay, well, I'll put the item. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, moving on. Thanks, Neil. You can go if you want. You're sticking around for other things.
I'll hang around.
Okay, all right. Thanks. Next one is 6.2, naming of a private road, TT Flynn Street, Sandy Bay. So, okay, Lord Mayor got in first. That's moved. Any comments? Anyone not happy with the naming of this road? No, we're all in support.
So, Deputy, have you got concerns about it?
No, I just want to vote for it, Lord Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, if there's no dissent to naming this road, I'll put the item. If anyone opposes it, raise their hand. No, I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Item 6.3 is the Pura Milk Factory, Lena Valley, heavy vehicle use of Augusta Road status update. Moved by Councillor Burnett. Any discussion? That's just acknowledgement.
It seems like a good, hopefully is a good result. I haven't heard any feedback from people one way or the other, but I think, yeah, travelling at 20 kilometres an hour is very, very slow, and the science around the impact that has on noise is pretty compelling. So I hope it's making a difference.
Mm-hmm. All right. So if there's no further discussion on that item, I'll put the officer's recommendation. Any dissent? No? Okay, I'll declare that carried. And welcome, Alderman Barakis. We're up to item 6.4, which is the state government waste announcement, container refund scheme and waste to landfill levy. So these items, these issues, these very big waste issues for the state have finally arrived. People have been talking about it for a number of years. So it's really positive to see the minister moving ahead with both the container refund scheme and the waste levy. So I'm very excited to have these coming to us after so many years of talking about it and pushing for it. So very good. I'll open the discussion. Deputy?
Chair, I'm happy to move this, and yes, it is really welcome. I take on board those points of introduction of the levy as well, and try to smooth that out a bit. I think that's sensible to argue for. But yeah, as you've said, really good approach to reducing litter, reducing our landfill waste, hopefully, with the container deposit scheme and greenhouse gas emissions as a result of that as well. So lots of positives with it. And it was also brought up at the Legat Local Government Weekend, the Professional Development Weekend. So Dion Lester, who's right across it, was just informing participants of Legat's strong position on this.
Including supporting the split model. Yeah.
That's right, yep.
Okay. Well, I think it's a good decision. Any other comments from the Lord Mayor or Alderman Barakis?
Thank you, Chair. Look, I think this is something that everybody seems to be on the same page on, including the state government. I was wondering if we just get a brief rundown on what we're proposing and what we're suggesting with our support of the draft bill from the director, just quickly, if you could.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman. I think your opening remarks were pretty accurate. There's perhaps more happening in waste management in Tasmania right at the moment than there has been for a number of years. And I think it's really exciting. I agree with you. It's really exciting to see both of these initiatives being progressed. And it's interesting that they come at the same time. Perhaps if I cover very briefly the draft waste and resource bill firstly, as the Deputy suggested, it involves the introduction of a waste levy. That levy will be applied to all waste that goes to landfill. The state government have suggested a $60 per tonne levy, but being introduced incrementally at $20 a tonne and then going up by $20 a tonne every second year. Our recommendation, as per the report, is that perhaps the state government give consideration to bringing in at $20 a tonne and then increasing it $10 per tonne each year up to that maximum of 60, just so as we get a more smoothing effect, and it isn't such a large hike every second year, but it's a progressive hike through the process. We're very much anxious to ensure that all the fee collected is used for waste management and minimisation. We are keen to see, we understand the state government and the minister are particularly anxious to have this take effect on the 1st of November this year, and we understand that, but given that it will also apply to the curbside waste that we collect and ultimately goes to landfill, and we impose a charge for that in our annual rates notice, we're suggesting that the application of the rate in relation to curbside waste take effect on the 1st of July next year. So that would mean that waste that goes over to the tip, yes, start the collection on the 1st of November, but waste that we collect curbside actually waits until July next year, because we won't get a chance to send out a subsequent rates notice, and there will also be a period of negotiation with contractors and the like for those councils involved. And then the last thing that we are suggesting with regard to the levy is that the state government's given a commitment or an indication that those regions with voluntary levies will receive a subsidy to recognise the levy that currently applies, because the new statewide levy will replace voluntary levies. Now, we support that. We think it's a good idea because the regions, the northwest and northern regions, both have a number of programs and projects in train, and cutting off their funding supply would be difficult. So we support that, but we're also saying in the south we shouldn't be disadvantaged because the councils have been directly funding the Regional Waste Authority rather than imposing a voluntary levy, and therefore reimbursement to an amount equivalent of what we've been investing would be appropriate, and even more appropriate if it was done on a per capita or per waste basis. So that's the draft bill and the levy, and the bill covers a whole range of other issues, but we're generally supportive of it. A lot of things will come out in the regulations and they haven't yet been released. In terms of the container refund scheme, again, this council has previously supported the notion of the introduction of a scheme, and a lot of people have said it's been in place in South Australia for many, many years and has worked really well. I think the only issue that perhaps is in any way contentious in this one is that, well, perhaps there are two issues that the report picks up. One is making sure there is an appropriate range of accessible points for people to take their containers to and get the refunds, particularly when we're talking about smaller regional areas that may not have transfer stations. The possibly contentious issue, though, is the operating model that might be utilised. And as the report suggests, there are two options. One is having a single operating model, which is the same as the Queensland model, or we have this split responsibility where there is a network operator that administers the scheme, and then we've got the collection points separate to it. The state government was proposing the latter of those two options, and we support that. We believe that that model that is in place in New South Wales, I think, is the preferred model for Victoria, who are a little bit ahead of Tasmania, is proving to be very successful and further incentivises the return of containers. And so whilst there is a lot of public lobbying at the moment from those that believe a single model might be more effective, it is our view that the dual model as proposed is a better option. Happy to take any questions, and I notice Mr. Holmes has joined us and can also field questions if there are any more, Chairman.
And thank you for that, Director. And look, with that said, I'm supportive of this. I think this is once again something I think everybody's in agreement on, and a good step forward. So I'm happy to support that.
Very good. Any other discussion points anyone would like to raise? No? Okay. All right. Well, I'm very happy with this report as well, and I support the officer's views on smoothing the increase over, the period from $10 a year rather than $20 every 2 years. I think that's a sensible move. Okay. If there's no further comments or discussion, I'll put the item. Has someone moved it? I think you moved this, Deputy. Okay. All right. If there's no dissent, then I'll declare it carried unanimously, and that goes to full council.
Chair, I have to leave now. Thank you.
Okay then.
Bye.
Cheerio. Thanks, Lord Mayor. Item 6.5 is the Hobart's Energy Use and Greenhouse Gas Emissions Annual Reports, 2018-2019 and 2019-2020. We did have a request to alter the recommendation, and I've sent that around to the committee as well. So I might ask Robert, Deputy, if you've got something to say first.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Stevenson too.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you very much. So this annual report, the 2019-2021, concludes a set of reports that the council embarked upon in 2000. So this being the 10th one of those, and the council has met its greenhouse gas reductions and energy emissions targets over that period. The request for the change in the recommendation was relatively minor. The recommendation originally said there would be another report coming in April to talk about the next set of change of reductions that might happen after this. That has really been covered off by the targets set in the Sustainable Hobart Action Plan that the council endorsed in November last year. And the wording of that recommendation just slipped through because an officer went into hospital, and it was from quite some time ago. It just should have been updated to state that this group of reports concludes a period of a package of work done by the council, and that the same type of work.
Sorry, Chair, we have to stop. We don't have a quorum.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Belinda. Alderman Barakis, thank you. Could you stay online so we can hold the quorum? Yep.
Yep. Sorry. Essentially, the same kind of activities will now be taken over by the actions within the Sustainable Hobart Action Plan, and it was just a recommendation that the committee recognise that this work is finished, and that the same kind of work would now be taken over by the actions within that action plan, which includes similar targets to the ones set under this completed body of work.
All right. Okay then, Deputy.
So through you to Mr. Stevenson. So the methodology remains the same for the targets.
Well, so the method, through you, Chair, the methodology for the new set of targets is being formulated now. So we don't necessarily have exactly the same methodology. The same measurement methodologies and everything exists. The methodologies for this set of targets that's now completed were largely around emissions from McRoby's Gully, and so that set of targets would still, that methodology, that would continue on. So the reductions from McRoby's will be ongoing. The mitigation that we can do at McRoby's has largely been used up, and now we're just really running out the clock on the emissions that are going to continue to come from McRoby's Gully until such time as that landfill has stopped emitting emissions. We've captured what we can capture. So the new targets are based around community targets that the council would be involved in, and then also some city-based targets that are detailed in the action plan, and those targets would have. Essentially the methodology was to look for energy reduction or energy efficiency gains through council activities, and that's essentially what the action plan would be doing as well. It would just be under a slightly different name is the only real difference. And then the community targets, which are slightly separate, would be run possibly as an arm's length model, where we would have a consultant who would help us to create those community targets. So that's a separate thing to these ones, to the corporate targets.
Chairman, thanks, Mr. Stevenson. I would like to think that we were still getting that report coming up to this committee on a presumably an annual or biannual basis. And that it's part of the annual report. So I'm happy to move those changes. So the change, can you hear me okay? Because I know that this is fairly unstable. But
yeah, no, we've got you. We're coming through fine. Yep.
Okay, so the change, and I'll send it through to you, Belinda, that the committee recognises that with the publication of the attached 2019-20 report, the outcomes of the previous greenhouse gas emissions reduction program have been fulfilled. and that future actions and reporting of the city's corporate emissions reductions would be managed under the Sustainable Hobart Action Plan endorsed in November 2020. So that's, moves into that. But part 2 would be that the methodology, as per the reports for 2010-2020 targets, remain the same, with biannual reports and annual updates provided to this committee, because I think it's really important that we still capture that information and hear that information. And then part 3 or part 2, as it is now, would become part 3.
Sorry, can you just repeat your part 2? Because when you talk about methodology, you're talking about the actions and the way we report on both emissions and energy efficiency. So I'm assuming we'll still have an annual report. And what does biannual mean? Is that twice a year or every second year?
Every second year.
Yeah, I would expect a yearly report.
Okay.
Yeah, on our energy efficiency achievements and our greenhouse reductions, like we've been receiving for a long time.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I'll send that through to Belinda.
But Robert, I assume we will still get a yearly report on our activities. We just haven't set targets for the next 12 months. Is that the case?
That's the case. I mean, there's never any intention. Sorry, and I possibly misinterpreted the question. So the intention would be that the reporting would continue, and I mean annual or biannual or whatever would be fine. But there is also an action within the Sustainable Hobart Action Plan that this information would be available in as close to real time as it can be gathered on the website as part of the Sustainable Hobart portal. So there would be always the annual report at the end of the year, but you'd also be able to check that on a day-by-day basis if you wanted to for whatever metrics we were capturing in real time. So essentially moving to a real-time model, reporting at the end of the 12th month with a report like we produce now, but much more availability of that data throughout the year as well.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate the dashboard approach to information. It makes it much more real than only, having it come across your desk every 12 months. Yeah. Yep. So your part 2 now, Deputy Lord Mayor, can we just hear it again?
So the methodology as per the reports for 2010-2020 targets remain the same, and that some of those are captured on the dashboards in real time, as well as updates provided to this committee on an annual basis.
Is that overly complicating it for you, Robert?
No, as long as the meaning of methodology means the methodology of the reporting rather than the methodology of the actions. I mean, we'll have different actions every year, but as I understand that, it's saying that we would report using the same methodology that we've always reported, so that you would have continuation of that reporting format, but we would also add this real-time data dashboard method. So that's what's intended, and if that meets what's being suggested, then I'm very happy with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll send it through.
Yeah, send it through. Yep, to the committee as well. And anyway, we get another look at it at the council meeting as well. So this will be going to full council, I'm assuming. Okay, I will assume. But anyway, what I can say though is I'm really pleased to see that we've exceeded our targets, and that we're tracking really well to reduce both our emissions and our energy consumption. So well done to the officers, and also I'd like to acknowledge Katrina Graham and her dedicated work over a couple of decades to help us achieve these very positive outcomes. And I'd also like to acknowledge the annual savings of $1.2 million that we now achieve because of our reduced energy consumption across the organisation. So that's a great achievement. Any further comments? Mr. Doyle?
And just to say that the report that's presented is committee delegation, so I'm not sure if you do want it to go to council or not, or if the deputy's amendment does change that. Perhaps Belinda might provide some advice just to get clarity on that for you.
Thank you. I'll have to check into it. So once I read the amendment and also read the recommendation, so I could probably provide that advice in due course.
All right. We've got the amendment now. So I think the methodology is always consistent. It's the actions that will decide how we achieve the outcomes. Is that how you understand it, Mr. Stevenson? It's the actions, I think, that are the important part. Not the methodology of how we measure will always be consistent, I imagine, because that would be the standards we'd have to use.
Well, those are the things that I want as consistencies. Yeah, I think it's really important that they're consistent.
Yeah, the way we measure. Yep. Anyway, all right. Is there any? Okay, look, I'm happy with the amendment, and if there's any issues, it'll go to full council then, I think. So, Belinda, are you happy that this is a committee delegated item?
For what I can read at the moment, Chair, it looks like a committee delegated item, but I will confirm. So, okay. And I will advise the committee on the outcome of that.
All right then. Okay. Well, if there's no further discussion, I'll put the item. All those in favour or any dissent, raise your hand. Okay. So it's unanimous with the three of us, and we'll move on to item 7, which is committee action status report.
I'm happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Alderman Barakis. Any discussion on the status report? There being none, I'll put the item. Any dissent, raise your hand. No dissent. And item 8 now is responses to questions without notice. We have 2 responses there which are not up for discussion.
I'll move them as well, Chair.
Thank you. No dissent. I'll declare that carried. And then item 9 is questions without notice. Does anybody have any questions for the director? Councillor Alderman Barakis.
Thank you. I'm not, given the subject matter, I'm not sure if it's for this committee or finance and governance, but if I'll ask them and we'll see how we go. What's the current status of the Lafroy Street car park project that was endorsed by council, I think, at the end of 2019? My understanding is that there was a time limit on that contract, and I'm just wondering if we're getting close to approaching that and if we're going to get it done in time.
Look, I might handle that. I think that matter should be dealt with in closed because it deals with a contractual matter. So I'm happy to respond to that in closed.
And the second question, and this is likely one you do have to take on notice. Since the beginning of this term of council, what's the council's? If you're hoping you got the numbers somewhere, what's the stock of on-street and off-street parking, and what would that be? What would that number be today compared to the beginning of the term?
Yeah, that's one for Mr. Carr, and I think we can take it on notice on his behalf.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. No further questions? Okay. Well, would somebody like to move that we close the open?
I'll move that, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Barakis, and open the closed. No dissent to that. So